A lot of things happen in Love is Blind, but the one thing I didn't expect this week was Nick dressing up as a corn on the cob and Danielle dressing up as a hot dog. All right. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review and recap of this week's episodes of Love is Blind Season 2. We're talking about episodes 6 through 9. If you missed my reaction to episodes 1 through 5, you can check that out right at the top of the screen. Last week was so much fun. You all were so active in the comments. Thank you so much for your love and support. So this week, I hope you do the same. Let's get loud down below. Which couples did you really enjoy this week? Which moments were the most surprising? And who do you think actually says yes at the altar by the end of this show? Because yes, next week is episode 10, the finale, and you can bet your bottom dollar I'm coming back here on the channel and we're talking about the finale next weekend. So how we'll break it down is we'll begin with my spoiler-free thoughts on these episodes, and yes, there are time codes below, so if you do want to skip ahead to the spoiler discussion where we do talk about our engaged couples, you can definitely do that. But hey, before we get into it, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies and TV just like this. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy everything you saw today. And hey, if you want to talk more TV and Love is Blind like this, you can go ahead and get subscribed because I'm sure we got a lot more to talk about. Alrighty, you guys, so let's get right into my spoiler-free thoughts. And where we left off was all the engaged couples are now getting back to reality and living with one another. There's 21 days until weddings, and things are getting much more serious. So the next steps now are the engaged couples have to meet their friends and family members, and I'll be honest, there are some things that these episodes do much better than our first week of episodes, and that it does include the pacing. Everything just seems to be moving along a little bit smoother, and maybe that's because we're cutting out all of the nonsense in the pods. I don't think it was very strong this season, unfortunately, but I will tell you that there is something about the way these episodes kind of flowed in and out from one another that really worked for me. Yes, you have some of that cheesy reality show drama, and even though the editing within conversations isn't very natural, I did really enjoy a lot more of the conversations and the actual interactions between our contestants and their loved ones. Now, I'll be honest, there are still some crazy jump cuts here. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking, honestly, in the editing bay. I would imagine they would want these conversations to feel natural, and that didn't really happen here. I mean, sometimes we're hearing Shane and Shaina talk, and it's like, okay, why are we getting these crazy cuts and these sentences don't end naturally? So it just didn't seem to work for me all the way through, but I think that's just something that's going to be the case this season. And then I even noticed some awkward camera angles. There was a shot that was out of focus, which was weird. And why do some scenes feel overexposed here? Maybe it's just me. Let me know down below in the comments, but there were a lot of scenes here that seemed like the image sharpness was turned all the way up and shots were just overblown. And I don't know why they didn't account for any of this, but it didn't seem to me like the production value here was as good as season 1. And then there's the needle drops. If you guys remember my review and recap from last week, I didn't like the music choices, and they're not that great here either. Although I will be honest, some of the needle drops were really awkward and it actually made me laugh, so there's that. But still, there were some positives to take away outside of all that, like picking out the dresses and the suits for their wedding days was a pretty nice moment. In my opinion, Ayana and Natalie's dresses were my favorite. I thought they were really nice, and it was nice to see their family members interact, at least some family members interact. Fortunately, Mallory, I believe her mother and sister couldn't make it, so that must have been hard for her, but I do think that seeing Natalie and her mother, and then of course you have Shane and her mother interact and actually get along was kind of nice. And we did get some surprises here too, like Shane and Shake having a heart-to-heart. Yeah, what the heck? Didn't expect that. It came out of left field. And speaking of fields, guys, the Bachelor and the Bachelorette parties were definitely very interesting. They were kind of meh to me, to be honest. The men went to Wrigley Field, which was cool, but I just didn't feel like those segments were anything to really rave about. And then you had the Bachelorette party, which took the women on the boat, and they went, I think it was Lake Michigan or something like that. I love Chicago, I should know this, but I didn't really feel like there was any sort of intrigue there for me. The conversations could have happened anywhere else, so what made this venue special, or what made this location special? And well, there wasn't much, honestly, there for me to really chew on. So I'm curious to hear what fans think, but I thought that those segments were kind of weak, and honestly, I was just looking ahead to the wedding days at that point. But hey, there's still a lot of drama here. It's still incredibly messy, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. One, the couple I'm most surprised with, and that's Shane and Natalie. What the heck, y'all? If you would have asked me last week, I would have said Shane is leaving Natalie is leaving Shane, and they are not going to work out. But somehow, some way, they're kind of overcoming some of these early hurdles, and I feel like they're actually showcasing the most growth. Now, if you remember, my favorite couple so far is Jarrett and Ayana, and while they're still strong this week, I feel like the one couple that grew the most was probably Natalie and Shane. Now, is Shane still a big baby at times? Absolutely, but I still think that both of them are somehow growing to form a tighter bond over these few weeks. Now, the couple I don't think is doing very well at all, and I just don't think will last, honestly, is Nick and Danielle. They have the most arguments on this show. They have the most falling outs on this show. I mean, they've left one another, they've come back, they've tried to make it work, and I just don't buy it. Something about their connection doesn't seem like it's very strong at all. And to be honest with you, I know a lot of you were saying this in the comments, but it seems to me that they both have things they need to address individually before they can be strong together. And yes, there's always going to be insecurities no matter what, but Danielle does seem to be getting in her own head too much, and Nick, to me, is blowing things up out of nowhere. It's like he has this little bit of temper to him, and I just don't know if he needs to be focusing so much on the negatives as much as he is. I mean, there was a whole conversation that Nick, Danielle, and Nick's family had where they just kind of commented on Danielle's anxiety and nervousness. What? But if you had to ask me, guys, I do think that episodes 6 through 9 much stronger, much more enjoyable than episodes 1 through 5, and that probably has to do a lot with the fact that we're kind of getting to the finish line, so the stakes, well, they're getting much higher. And y'all, they really don't care about anyone else who didn't make it in the pods. There was one moment where they all met on the beach, I think, or a beach at the beginning, I think, of episode 6, and there's some drama we'll talk about later in the spoiler section, but they were like, oh, it was so nice seeing some people from the pods that didn't get engaged. I think we saw Hope and some other ladies and men, but they didn't even pay them any mind. So at this point, I'm thinking, like, what was the point? Why do we even have anyone else that was introduced in episode 1? It just seemed pointless to me. But I digress, guys. So that's all we got for my spoiler-free thoughts, because now we really got to recap and talk about these engaged couples and what the heck happened. So again, this is the spoiler section. So if you don't want spoilers, I mean, go watch it and come back. So let's begin with Nick and Danielle, guys, because to me, they're the most uninteresting couple here. Do they have the most arguments? Yes. Do they have the most falling outs? Of course. But they're not interesting to me, and I just don't think the believability factor is not there. They don't have a strong connection, and they're not growing. If anything, they're actually one of the more problematic and toxic relationships on the show. Both of them are really hesitant, and I mean, yes, we do get some moments where it seems like they're growing and overcoming hurdles, but that doesn't happen often because they just go back to arguing again. Danielle even tells Nick during one of their arguments, "I thought you were being fake." And I just don't understand how that helps anything, but at the same time, she's being honest. So Nick did apparently, I guess, bring up his friends or text his friends and family when he was meeting Danielle's family, and that made Danielle feel like pretty bad, and I don't blame her, but man, they just don't seem to have that chemistry, and the show tries to make them likable by putting them literally in a corn on the cob outfit and a hot dog outfit. It was just ridiculous, and I thought it was such a downer, and it took me totally out of the entire groove of that episode. But I just don't think there's enough here between these two for me to say confidently that yes, they're gonna make it at the altar. Danielle, of course, at the end of this episode, we get the start of weddings, and it is Nick and Danielle together. Danielle says yes, but Nick, we don't know. We have to wait till next week, guys. I don't even know. They didn't even give me the screeners for next week. Go figure. But I just don't feel it. Nick is sweating quite a bit. Yes, it could be hot, but at the same time, I think he has made up his mind, guys. I think he's saying no. But time will tell. We will see next weekend if they do survive at the altar. But let's move on to Deepti and Shake. And guys, I am surprised with this couple. Their family meetings were really genuine, and I didn't expect them to actually get along too well for some odd reason, but it was really nice to see how their families were supportive. They really were honest with one another, and it just seems to me that Shake and Deepti are really trying to get the best out of one another. Even there's a moment at the end where Shake opens up to Deepti and he's crying. He's so vulnerable, and I do believe him when he says he's never really opened up to anyone like this. So it was really a pleasant surprise. Of course, there are still moments that make me shake my head, which is, of course, Shake still telling his mother that he's not physically attracted to Deepti. Like, man, you got to figure that out, bro. And Shane, and of course, when they had their heart-to-heart, Shane really tried to help Shake figure that out. You know, so many S names here in this show, by the way. But I loved Shake's mom keeping it real, y'all. She told Shake that Deepti doesn't deserve someone who gives her 0.5% less than all of them. And I was like, yo, okay, Shake's mama knows, man. So I really appreciated some of those moments, and to me, they were definitely a bright spot with these episodes that we got this week. But now we got to move on and talk about Kyle and Shaina. Well, y'all, I think it's safe to say they're done. Like, completely. Shaina returned the ring, told Kyle, I can't marry you. The meeting between Kyle and Shayna's parents was very awkward, but the one thing that Shaina wasn't willing to give up, which I don't blame her for here in this regard, is the fact that she believes in God and she has that relationship with Jesus, and Kyle doesn't, and Kyle probably won't right now. He seems to be a little stubborn. So Shaina said that's a deal breaker. Fine. But the one thing I disagree with Shaina about is the fact that Shaina shouldn't have said yes to Kyle knowing that he is an atheist. Like, if this is an important pillar, if this is the foundation for your relationship and relationships in the future, girl, you should have said no in the beginning. And the thing is, there were some red flags with Kyle outside of that too. When Shaina asked why he wanted to get married to her, he said, so nobody else gets you. Like, bruh, that's not an answer. Not only did they not mesh, but man, they gave them the awkward cut where it was just such, well, yeah, it was awkward. Even the parents and the siblings for Shaina were going in on Kyle, asking him if he's a godly man. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad they got that out of the way in the beginning though, because not only were they just not going to work, and I'm sure we all knew that from the beginning when they were in the pods, it just did not seem that there was enough substance there to carry the rest of the season. But my big thing is, Shaina went to the beach when they all met up earlier in this week's episodes and told Shane that, hey, basically, you guys aren't going to work out. Now, that is not her place. She needs to mind her own business, but Shane stuck up for him and Natalie's relationship, which I'm actually really proud that Shane did. My prediction last week was that Shane was going to leave Natalie and go with Shaina, but that does not seem to be the case. Shane actually brought up the fact that Shaina told Natalie, if it doesn't work out with y'all, I got a man for you. That's not cool. I'm so glad Natalie told Shane that, because no secrets in the relationship, of course. But Shane, what in the world, man? I did not expect him to put his foot down and be like, watch yourself, Shaina. So go ahead, Shane. So speaking of all of Shane and all of that, let's move right into Shane and Natalie's relationship. Y'all, like I said earlier, my spoiler-free thoughts, they're the most surprising couple for me. You can tell Natalie and Shane are genuine at the end of the day. There are some caution flags there though. Of course, Natalie's prepared financially for a home, but Shane told Natalie that he spends over $2,000 a month on food. Yeah, on food, and doesn't even believe in 401ks. Like, girl, the first thing you need to make sure you got before you get married is all your financial ducks in a row. He doesn't have a 401k, red flag. He doesn't really spend his money wisely, red flag. But also, if he doesn't want to change those habits, it's also a red flag. However, I do think Shane wants to change those habits. He seemed pretty genuine when he told Natalie that he's willing to change and adapt and be better for them both. Now, it was cute, but I also got a little annoyed when they were wedding planning, because Shane is a big baby. He wanted a fountain for old-fashioned like drink mixes, and I was like, why? But then when he explained why, I'm like, okay, maybe we can tone that down and not get a fountain, but still honor your father at the wedding. So yes, there were some moments that annoyed me between these two, but it still was one of the better moments, or still one of the better couples actually this week. And it was kind of cool to see that Natalie's dad was on Natalie's side here. And even though Natalie's mother did not approve of Shane and Natalie together at first, she definitely warmed up to it during the dress scene. Yeah, it was just so cool. So again, Shane and Natalie, props to them both. I really actually hope they make it now. Alrighty guys, so let's move on to our second to last couple, and that is Mallory and Salvador, the man who plays the ukulele. Literally, he has been serenading Mallory, I think, since they left the pods. But both of them definitely have some things to overcome, and I almost feel like both of them are maybe not on the same wavelength right now. Mallory does feel a little slighted by Sal because he wasn't very clear with his ex-girlfriend that they were done before taking part in this experiment, and that to me was an issue, of course. Sal should have been much more clear and open about that with Mallory and with his ex, letting her know, like, girl, we done. But he didn't do that, unfortunately, so that created a little bit of a rift between them. I think Mallory is probably doubting everything more than Sal is, but I see them starting to kind of progress forward little by little. Now, I will tell you, I don't think Jarrett and Mallory, that whole drama from week one, is going to play any more part. I think they squashed that completely, and I think that they're going to just essentially be exclusive. So Mallory and Sal, yep, Jarrett and Ayana, okay. And I just think that entire bit of drama is probably gone. However, it was really interesting to see Mallory's sister not give them her blessing. And I think Sal really wanted that. So I'm curious to see how everything goes at the altar between these two. But I mean, hey, I wouldn't put it past Sal to actually literally sing as she's coming down the altar. I could see it. Alrighty, so let's round out this spoiler recap and discussion with Jarrett and Ayanna. They are my number 1, Shane and Natalie my number 2. Then you got, let's see, Mallory and Salvador number 3, and Nick and Danielle, they're down there. So let's dive right into Jarrett and Ayanna. I love their family meetup. I'm gonna say it straight away. Jarrett's parents are amazing. You know that they are definitely going to be one of the biggest supporters of both of them. Jarrett's parents are men and women of God. They definitely understand what it takes, of course, to have a healthy marriage, it seems. And I love that Jarrett's father wants to officiate their wedding. Listen, they were crying. I was close to crying. It was just such an emotional moment. But I like the fact that they also showed us that Ayanna's parents, while they are a little bit more conservative and their energy is a little bit lower because they're maybe a little bit more cautious and protective over Ayanna, eventually, I think that they're growing to like Jarrett. Both of them did sprinkle in the fact that maybe they're doubting this a little bit and whether or not they're 100% in, but it was nice that by the end of this week's episodes, Jarrett and Ayanna basically said, hey, I'm in it all the way. Does Jarrett have some tendencies he has to break out of? Of course, going to the bar with his friends and leaving Ayanna at home, like that is your soon-to-be wife. You need to ask her if she wants to go, and if she doesn't, to me, I would figure out what Ayanna wants to do. So like I would ask my girlfriend, like, okay, you don't want to go out, let's go ahead and do something else then. Let's go ahead and make memories together. Let's spend time together. That's how I would approach it. So I think Jarrett is learning that too. Ayanna didn't really speak up on that, but you know, I'm kind of glad that Ayanna did bring it up eventually that, hey, let's change some things around here. The one thing I'm actually curious about though is why we're not learning a lot more about Ayanna's past. That is interesting to me. They did touch on the fact that she is adopted, but I feel like there's more to her story that this show has not explored. I'm wondering if they do that next week. But earlier in this week's episodes, Ayanna definitely made sure to squash that Mallory-Jarrett drama. She said, is that why you chose Mallory? And I was like, Lord. Like, it was interesting to see how both of them had that really intense conversation, but also they were able to grow from it. So it just seems to me they both know what they want each other, and I'm happy for them. So I really pray that everything works out and it's a healthy marriage. So next week, what are we expecting? Of course, we're going to be expecting all of the weddings to happen. We're going to find out if Nick says yes. We're going to find out if the rest of our engaged couples go through with it. Is there a surprise down the road? To me, the surprise I think that will catch a lot of people off guard is Mallory saying no to Salvador. I'm not asking for it to happen, but I just think it might. But guys, I need to know exactly what you think about all of our engaged couples. Who says yes? Who says no? Get loud down below in the comments. And again, you're going to want to stay subscribed to the channel. Hit the big red button below because next week we're coming back and discussing the finale. It's just one episode, so trust me, we're going to have a lot to say. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And honestly, I'm not ordering a hot dog suit. No, I'm gonna invest that money. I'm gonna be smart.